We have established a lot of things already in our first 2 coaching sessions and even made a recap to ensure that everything is crystal clear and no information got lost in the void. And yeah, some of those points that we already established need to be talked about in much more detail. But before we're gonna do that, I want to establish 2 more things here real quick to round everything up and make sure we have the complete picture. So what are those 2 things? Those 2 things are odds and tempo. Yeah, let's go and talk about what does that mean. What are odds? What is tempo? Let's start off with talking about odds. When we talk about odds, we are talking about the probability or the chance of something specifically occurring or happening. So for example, you will often run into a scenario where you can say, hey, this is the best play for this situation right now, but what if my opponent would now happen to have a card that would really hurt me? Most of the times this is gonna be a Sabrina. Let's go with Sabrina as an example here. So yeah, I would now, let's say, retreat my Pokemon and put something else into the active, but if my opponent would now happen to have that Sabrina, that would actually hurt me and I could lose the game. So instead of going for the best play, I would now play around my opponent having that Sabrina, play it safe, and yeah, go for a play that is not the best, but I have to play it safe, otherwise I would get in trouble. If a scenario like this would occur to you, the best thing you can possibly do now is to figure out the odds of how likely is it that my opponent actually has that Sabrina in his hand, or how likely is it that my opponent would draw the Sabrina right now if I end my turn. The question here now is, how do someone figure out these odds? And that is actually, especially in Pokemon TCG Pocket's case, not too complicated, as yeah, a deck only consists of 20 cards. And the way you figure out the odds are, you take a look first of all as to how many cards are still in my opponent's deck. So you just hover with the mouse over the deck and you can see how many cards are left in his deck. And you can also, in case you are not sure, you forgot, check his discard pile to see if he has already played a Sabrina or not. So you know that how many Sabrinas are in his deck, 1 or 2, you know. And you look at the size of his hand. How many cards does he still have in his hand? So check his discard pile to realize how many Sabrinas are still left in play. Check his deck size and check his hand size. You count his hand size and his deck size together. Let's say he has 2 cards in hand and there are 8 cards left in his deck. So that is a total of 10 cards. And he did not play a Sabrina yet, so 2 Sabrinas are still left. Now the probability, the odds of him having that Sabrina are 2 in 10 pretty much. But now you have to keep in mind that he will draw a card. So he will have 9 cards left in his deck and have 3 hand cards, you know. So now you know the odds and you have to calculate that this is pretty much like 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 9, and now you know the risk. The odds are of course in your favor, but it's still very risky, you know. There are just 9 cards left. The odds of both of those Sabrina being in these 9 cards is yeah pretty low, you would generally say, but now you know the odds are 3 to 9, and now you have to make a decision. That is up to you. Do you want to take that risk by playing around the Sabrina still or not? And yeah, to give you the advice of this is how you should always do it, that is pretty much impossible, because it depends on the game state. Like, what is exactly happening? What is your bench? What are you active? What is your matchup? You know, what are the cards in your hand? And everything. There's so much that is very important and differs per every match, that I cannot give you a definitive answer of you should always do this in this situation because that's perfect. That's impossible. That depends on, as I said, the game state, you know. What is your bench, what is your hand, yada yada yada. Every single card that is in play matters here. Every energy that is in play matters here. Damage counters that are in play matters here. So yeah, you now know how to calculate the odds, at least to a certain degree, and you can base your decision now better and more accurate than if you wouldn't calculate the odds. And I of course have to mention one more thing that is like very important here, and that is of course coin flips. There's one thing you have to know about coin flips, and because you might think a coin flip is a 50-50 chance, so it could go either way. That is not exactly 100% true, because a coin flip is always against you. You never want to flip a coin because that is always a risk. So you should never look at a coin flip as a 50-50, but rather as a 49 and against 51. So a coin flip is always against you. A coin flip is never in your favor or equal. A coin flip goes against you every time. That is the best mindset to have here. And even more important is that now every additional coin you flip after the first one drops in percentage. So yeah, the first coin you flip, that is 49% likely to flip your desired result. The second coin you flip is 47. The third coin you flip is 43. And the more coins you flip, the more this percentage drops, and it drops drastically. Of course I cannot tell you the exact numbers here, but yeah, all you have to know is that the percentage drops. First coin you flip, 49. Next coin is substantially lower, and it goes lower and lower and lower and lower. So let's take Zapdos as an example here. You flip 4 coins, and the fourth coin you flip is actually pretty close to 0% chance to land on heads, you know. So yeah, landing all 4 on heads. You notice if you played Zapdos. I played Zapdos myself a lot, and you will also realize that the more coins you flip, the more tails you will flip. There will always be less heads compared to tails. You will always flip more tails than heads, pretty much every time. The probability and how often I actually flipped 3 heads out of my Zapdos usages, which were a lot, was much lower than the probability of me flipping 3 tails. 3 tails and even 4 tails happen much more often than heads. And that's not a coincidence, you know. This is because of the fact that I just told you that every time you flip a coin, the coin flip is always against you. The more coins you flip, the more true this fact becomes. You know, that's very important to know. Don't think every single coin that you flip is counted individually and is always a 50-50. That is a misconception and not true, because again, let me tell you this real quick again. Every coin you flip is a risk that you take. So that is already the proof that a coin flip is against you. You never want to take a risk like that. And the more coins you flip, the more risks you take, obviously. And so the more risks you take, the more you are in danger. You know what I mean? That is, yeah, kind of simple to understand. So yeah, that's all about odds for now. Let's move on and talk about tempo advantage. What does that mean? Tempo, you know, we are not running here or racing or some shit, but yeah, we actually do. Let me explain. So you in every TCG, pretty much, so also in Pokemon TCG Pocket, you are allowed to draw 1 card per turn and you are allowed to attach 1 energy per turn. That is your tempo. 1 energy, 1 card per turn. That's all you get. Now you have cards though that allow you to attach more than just 1 energy per turn, and there are cards that allow you to draw additional cards, so more than just 1 card, and that's how you gain a tempo advantage over your opponent. Because by being able to attach more than 1 energy per turn, your Pokemon will be ready and ready faster than your opponents, and they will be able to dish out damage earlier and faster than your opponents. So there you go, that's tempo. It goes way deeper, of course, because you have cards that, for example, like Pikachu, he deals 90, he's a basic. That is also a thing about tempo. I will touch on that in just a second. He's a basic Pokemon that for just 2 energy deals 90 damage, while other Pokemon that are even like stage 1s, they deal less for 3 energy attachment, you know. That's why Pikachu was and even still is to some degree a very, very good card. Why? Because he's fast, and thanks to him needing just 2 energy and dishing out a lot of damage quickly, you gain the tempo advantage over your opponent, and that is game deciding. And the same thing is true for drawing more than 1 card per turn. That is a little bit more complicated though, because now we just talked about odds, you know, and how likely it is to draw a specific card, to draw the card that you need. And the more cards you draw, the faster you thin out your deck. So the faster you will have less cards in your deck, the more likely it becomes that you draw your desired card, the card that you need at this specific situation that you are in, or even your key cards, you know. So let's take Pikachu as an example again. So the Pikachu deck really depends on you having that Pikachu, and you have to have it quickly and early, you know. But if you don't draw into it, then by itself, you know, if you don't draw to it by just this 1 card that you need to draw additional cards and thin out your deck. It's not just about drawing the cards with like a professor's research, but also from a Pokeball, you know. That equals also to drawing a card, as your deck will now consist of 1 card less after you played the Pokeball. And one more time, the faster you draw more cards, the quicker you thin out your deck, the higher the odds of you drawing your desired card. And you can see that odds and tempo, they kind of go hand in hand. And there's another there's another thing here. Multiple other things, actually. We're not done. So tempo goes also, and odds, again, those things to go together. So there are evolutions in the Pokemon TCG. You have to actually draw into your evolution line. You can play the Charizard, and it is a very, very strong deck. But if you never draw into that Charizard, then the Charizard's entire strength and power is completely thrown out of the window. That's why cards like Pokemon Communication and Professor's Research and Pokeball are so incredibly good, because they give you the tempo advantage and they increase your odds of drawing your desired cards. They thin out your deck, which gives you the tempo advantage. That's why those cards are staples in every single deck, you know, because increasing your odds and having the tempo advantage over your opponent, those are among the highest priorities you possibly have. It is, you can say it's those two are the number 1 priorities, number 1 and number 2, easily. That's why cards that increase both of these things are played in every single deck, no matter what. One more thing I want to mention. I don't want to make this video too long, so there's just one more thing I will mention here real quick, and that is that if you have a combination of Professor's Research and Pokeball in your hand, in which order should you play these cards? That is a thing that a lot of people just, they don't know that, they don't calculate that, and they play these cards in the wrong order. So how you do it is, you always play Professor Oak first. Why? Because Professor Oak does not have any odds. Pretty much, like, right? He does have odds. Every card has odds. But for argument's sake, those odds are very, very low, and they can kind of be ignored in most scenarios. So you play him first. And that is why, and that is because Pokeball has very, very high odds. The odds of Pokeball, they matter much more than those of Professor's Research. So Pokeball searches out a basic Pokemon out of your deck, and you want to increase your odds of that basic Pokemon being exactly the one that you want right now. And that's why you play Professor's Research first, so that you use Professor's Research odds of drawing you other basic Pokemon from your deck and put them into your hand, so that you increase the odds of Pokeball giving you what you want. That's how you do it in most scenarios. Keep in mind though that that is not always 100% true, of course. Why? So and when? Sometimes you play the Pokeball first, and that is if you are in a scenario where the Pokeball, it doesn't really have a target anymore, as you already have all your desired basic Pokemon drawn already. And then you use Pokeball first, so that Pokeball decreases the size of your deck, thin out your deck, to then use the Professor's Research to draw you the other cards that you want, you know. As I said, you already have all the basic Pokemon that you need, that you want. So yeah, reducing the size of your deck by playing the Pokeball first increases the odds of Professor's Research drawing you something that you actually need and something that is actually useful in your situation. Alright, that was already way longer and much more information output than I had initially planned. So let's do a recap and a summary of everything that we accomplished here, established here, and yeah, then call it a day. Here it is, that is the summary. It's quite a lot, I know, but let's go over this in quick succession real quick. So when we talk about odds, we are talking about the probability, the chance, and the percentage of how likely it is for a certain scenario to occur, like drawing your card, the card that you want, etc. And to calculate how likely that is, how high the probability is, how high your odds are to have this specific scenario actually occur, is by looking at your opponent's deck size, on their hand size, and into their discard pile. Furthermore, it is very important that you understand that coin flips are always against you and never 50-50. And you have to realize and calculate in which order you have to play your cards to maximize your odds. The best example that there is pretty much is Professor's Research and Pokeball. And when we talk about tempo, we talk about how fast can you draw how many additional cards and thin out your deck. how fast can you accelerate how much energy, and also where to put that energy is a little bit of a different story, but accelerating more energy per turn than just one is a huge tempo advantage. And cards that need a very low amount of energy attached to them and deal a lot of damage for this low energy investment are also helping out a lot when it comes to tempo advantage. Pikachu here is a perfect example. And you have to keep in mind that evolution, like stage 2 Pokemon, they will slow you down a lot, and to increase your win rate with these and become more consistent, you have to calculate your odds and play the cards in the right order, as we already established. So that's pretty much about it. I know this is a whole lot of information, and most things here are pretty complicated if you want to understand them to a 100%, right? So don't worry about it. I just wanted to establish 2 more terms so we have kind of the full picture. Not really, but it is enough for now that we have established. There are other words we have to talk about, like for example game state and stuff, but this can come a little bit later. For now we have established very, very important information and very important terms, and already talked about pretty complicated stuff, but just try a little bit to follow along and don't overdo things. You don't need to understand everything right now, as we will do many more coaching sessions and go over individual points here in much more detail, and we will talk way more about pretty much each individual point here. So don't rush anything, take it easy, and we will get there in the end, I promise. And I get also, of course, guaranteed, it's already the case, like if you watch my coaching sessions, you will become a better player, 100% guaranteed. This of course I'm putting out information here that no one else puts out. No one else is talking about this stuff, and there are people even charge money for coaching sessions while I do all of this for free. And even the best players can learn, like let's say a few things here, okay, to be a little bit humble. So there you go. If you like Pokemon TCG Pocket content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and bye bye.